Today, a university like the LSE certainly has to acknowledge that it is in competition for the best students, all of whom have choices they can exercise, and many of them choices which run across national and continental borders. We are in competition too for staff. The academic job market is one of the most global there is, and in the 21st century, English is the new Latin. So universities in English-speaking countries are exposed to more intensive competition than those elsewhere. We are in competition for government funding through the assessment of research quality. We are in competition for research contracts from public and private sector sources, and indeed we are in competition for the philanthropic pound. Many of our own donors were at more than one university, and indeed think of the LSE's requests alongside those of other charities to which they are committed. That is the competitive environment which is particularly visible to a vice-chancellor. Welcome to Stanford University Business School. Today, I would like to talk about management and leadership. It is very important that you realize the importance of management and leadership in this university. It is obvious that the purpose of this education is to learn management and leadership skills. But you have to remember, this education of management should not be only about delivering services and making sure the good quality. However, you should realize it is responsibility of students to accomplish assignments by themselves instead of depending on others. Students should be responsible for the management performance and identify how it could happen appropriately. The responsibility means that the accomplishments achieved by others does not necessarily indicate what they are truly capable of. I'm 43 years old and I owe tens of thousands of dollars in student loans. Oh sure, I knew the loans were piling up as I went through school. But with one loan coming from here, another from there, I had no idea of the rock slide that was building. 15 years later, I still experience moments of sheer horror regarding my family's financial situation. My monthly student loan payment is more than triple my car payment. Okay, So without my college degree, I would not have been able to get my current job. For that I'm grateful, but at what cost? My loans have been accruing at a rate of 10%, and now they have burgeoned to, well, I'm an English major, you do the math. I don't think they'll ever get paid off. We're in debt way past our eyeballs, and there's no hope in sight. I'm being kept in class, a financial class of graduates whose only hope for attending college meant borrowing money from the government. Because of our mounting credit card debt and monthly payments that far exceed our family's income, my kids will also join the class of citizens who can't rely on their parents for college support. Do I wish I'd chosen another educational route? You bet. Perhaps trade school. I thought that being a plumber might not be such a bad gig. But if your job aspirations require a 4-year degree, take my advice and choose a college you can afford, both during and after graduation. Take a realistic look at your anticipated income and factor in priorities that don't carry a price, like the spouse and children you might want to have someday. I was overconfident that my student loan debt would pale in comparison to the lucrative writing career I'd enjoy after graduation. Now I'm paying for that decision in more ways than I'd ever imagined. In our survey, over 100 CEOs who have recently been through an acquisition or merger were asked which areas of their activities needed the most effort. As you can see, the most frequent response to this question was that information technology requires the most integration effort. According to 58% of those we surveyed, IT was the most time-consuming and needed the most work. This is understandable as many of the IT issues are extremely complex and the consequences of any change in IT can have a significant impact. The key is how quickly and effectively IT integration can be achieved, and there has to be a clear understanding of the consequences there may be of not getting it right. The two other areas requiring significant attention, sales, marketing and business development on the one hand and financial management on the other, both were selected by 49% of the respondents. They call it the marshmallow test. A 4 to 6-year-old child sits alone in a room at a table, facing a marshmallow on a plate. The child is told, if you don't eat this treat for 15 minutes you can have both it and a second one. Kids on average wait for 5 or 6 minutes before eating the marshmallow. The longer a child can resist the treat has been correlated with higher general competency later in life. Now a study shows that ability to resist temptation isn't strictly innate, it's also highly influenced by the environment. Researchers gave 5-year-old used crayons and one sticker to decorate a sheet of paper. One group was promised a new set of art supplies for the project, but then never received it. But the other group did receive new crayons and better stickers. Then both groups were given the marshmallow test. The children who had been lied to waited for a mean time of 3 minutes before eating the marshmallow. The group that got their promised materials resisted an average of 12 minutes. Thus, the researchers note that experience factors into a child's ability. Hello everyone, welcome to my class. Today, I will discuss this course on the general condition of how animals survive and reproduce. This is very interesting because animals survive and reproduce mainly involve factors which include temperature tolerance, body size, behavior, and the altitude they live in. Here is an example. Imagine animals that can survive only in hot environment. Now if this animal is put into a freeze, you will notice it will die very soon. Those species who have tolerance temperature to cold can only survive. This is why climate and seasons are quite important for animals' survival. Various species have to maintain their body underwater and tolerate different temperature with various seasons. Finally, I would like to point out that some of these species or animals can adapt climate change by changing their behavior and daily activity and the habitat they live in. Laughter is one of the greatest therapies in combating adversity, and whole communities and nations have frequently relied on humor to get them through the bleakest time. On August 13, 1961, the barbed wire was rolled out of Berlin to create the Berlin Wall. For nearly 30 years until it was dismantled, wall jokes proliferated, especially among those living in the East. Laughing was all that was left. Jokes about those who rule and sometimes those who tyrannize you are a form of folklore that has existed in societies as seemingly different as communist Eastern Europe, Tsarist Russia, modern Egypt, 12th century Persia, and modern-day Iran. Humor can also be wonderfully subversive. They can protect self-respect and identity. In more totalitarian societies, laughter relieves, at least temporarily, the pressures and anxiety of political oppression. Political jokes may not in themselves topple dictators, but they can provide solace. In a democracy like our own, perhaps the trouble with political jokes is that they sometimes get elected. Sea creatures are inspiring the latest devices that harness wave power. This one, called the oyster, sits on the ocean floor and opens and closes as waves pass over it. Cables attach it to generators on the shore. Since November 2009, it's been powering 9,000 homes in the Orkney Islands. Another device looks like a snake. The anaconda is made from a rubber tube filled with water that floats just below the surface. When a swell hits the front of it, the tube is squeezed, a bulge ripples down its length and powers a turbine in its tail. Prototypes are currently being tested, but the full scale version will be 200 meters long. This system also looks like a snake, but this one is made of steel. It floats near the surface where waves its joints move. This drives hydraulic systems that power electrical generators. Like the anaconda, it's still being tested. Results will prove if these devices are up to the job of supplying viable sources of green energy. Last month, I published a subject report on the development of citizenship in schools. The report celebrates the success of some schools in implementing the citizenship curriculum. It praises those schools where there have been substantial developments in the subject, and which now go a long way towards fulfilling national curriculum requirements. In the report, we are critical of schools which have not taken citizenship seriously, either through reluctance or lack of capacity to make appropriate provision in the curriculum. Citizenship is marginalized in the curriculum in 1/5 of schools. It is less well established in the curriculum than other subjects, and less well taught. And some critics have seized on this as a reason for wanting to step back from supporting it. Yet, the progress made to date by the more committed schools suggests that the reasons for introducing citizenship are both worthwhile and can be fulfilled, given the time and resources. While not claiming too much, citizenship can address core skills, attitudes, and values that young people need to consider as they come to terms with a changing world. The main problems standing in the way of implementation of citizenship continue to be the lack of commitment on the part of many school leaders, an insufficient amount of initial and in-service training provision to ensure that every school can call upon teachers with subject expertise, and its uncertain place in the curriculum. When this dog approaches some food, another dog's playful snarls are played back. The dog seems curious, but the sound doesn't stop it from taking the bone. Here, a dog hears the growls of a dog being approached by a stranger. But these don't deter it from grabbing the bone either. In another scenario, the sound of a dog protecting its food is played back. This time the dog backs off. These experiments suggest the dogs can distinguish between different types of growls.